Hello everyone, please press subscribe, press follow, press the bell so you don't miss any new clips. Adorable treasured fox, divine doctor mother overturning the heavens. Author by Co Chi Yi. Audio novels by Novelist. Chapter 311 by Yan's Wrath. Fu Tianqi was so scared that he almost slammed Fu Baoyun to death there with that slap. His face green and blue from anger. You shut up. Brother. Resentful at being hit, Fu Baoyun immediately protests with her hand covering her reddish cheek. I know you are worried about the royal family of the Lu Huo kingdom getting involved, but there's no way they would defend that woman. Yes, Bai Yan's sister is the crown princess, but she herself is a filthy whore that got herself impregnated before marriage. Such a shameless person can never be a threat. Dong Ruoqin was amazed by what his wife was spouting there. He may be slow and dense at times, but even he can see the king wasn't acting out of fear for the other nation. It's all because of the girl herself. Yes, it's fear. As if the woman high up in the air can reap away his life at any moment. But Fu Baoyun's self-righteous words did have a positive effect here. It gave this cowardly man a glimpse at realizing what his wife truly was. Unmoved by the nonsense taking place down below, Bai Yan was more focused in on what's coming over. The reason, her Phoenix Red Sea was slowly being carried out into the open by those people. This definitely didn't sit well with the woman. Seeing how bloodied and mangled those feathers were, Bai Yan can see the bird must have endured quite the painful torture session while being encaged during this period. She can't even raise her head to face Bai Yan right now due to how weak she was. Of course, there's no way Fu Tianqi can't see this for himself. Going stiff in the body, the king felt like he had just been thrust into hell itself and then smashed into a million pieces. Even his words were a stammering mess. Miss Bai Yan, please listen to me first, this must be a misunderstanding. Let me explain. Explain. She sneered as a raging torrent of wind picked up pace around her body due to the bloodthirst in her eyes. There's still a need for explanation. Dragon. Kill everyone that have touched Red Sea. As for Fu Baoyun, you can burn her a little so long as she stays alive. The enmity between her and that abhorrent woman didn't just contain the pain inflicted on her phoenix, it also involves her aunt Dong Rulan's injury. You bitch. Under the stress of the intense panic gripping his body, Fu Tianqi's king's first reaction was to slap at his own sister again. And due to how furious he was, that handsome face was outright twisted from rage. It's all your fault, you bitch. If you wanted to die, then you should have done it on your own. Why must you drag me and the whole family along with you? Have I not been good enough to you? The crimes and mistakes you've made all these years, I've overlooked them all. How can you repay me like this? I never should have listened to father's request and abolished you years ago. If not for father's guilt towards your birth mother, I and the whole royal family wouldn't have fallen into such a state. This is all your fault. You bitch. Perhaps the venting of his anger wasn't enough, so the king immediately follows up with another stomp at the abhorrent woman's chest, thus sending Fu Baoyun flying out and smashing straight into a nearby wall. The reason why I would be so distant towards the Dong family is because of you. I didn't want to see you. I thought my actions would make you realize your own mistakes and reform your ways. Instead you changed for the worse and pulled something like this. Originally Dong Ruoqin wanted to defend his wife there, but after hearing the truth from the king's mouth himself, his body instantly froze. At the same time over at another corner, old Lord Dong and old Madame Dong had also arrived just then. To hear this too, like their son, their faces were shocked with astonishment. There's no way the Dong house wouldn't know about the king's deliberate act of distancing him, but... what about the version used by Fu Baoyun all these years? Didn't the king do that because she married into the Dong house against his will? Didn't the king say he will reuse the Dong house because of her? So it's all lies. If not for all that stuff, both elders of the Dong house wouldn't have been so lenient over this abhorrent woman. They truly did do their best to treat her well, but what now? Their kindness and feelings were repaid with betrayal and deceit. Chapter 312, The Demon Beast Sect is here. 1. Bro brother, shivering there, Fu Baoyun had trouble keeping her voice calm. What are you saying? I am your favorite and dearest sister. When did I ever recognize you as my sister? If it weren't for father's request, I would have driven you out of the palace years ago. In the end it was you who dragged the Dong house down, yet you keep blaming him for dragging you down. Fu Tianqi's king words were like thunderbolts striking down from the sky, shocking her, blasting her, and incinerating her clueless mind to the point where the abhorrent woman can no longer make her words clear. The Dong house was dragged down by me. How can that be? It's obvious that the Dong family is the one dragging me down. I am the princess, how can that be true? But brother, before you were going to reuse my husband. If not for my sake, why would you suddenly have a change of heart towards him? Yes, brother is kind to me, otherwise he would never reuse the Dong house. Sensing the cool chill scraping behind his neck, Fu Tianqi king instantly knew where it's coming from. Falling into a panic, the king directly sends another slap at the abhorrent woman's face to shut her up. You self-righteous idiot. I'm only reusing your husband because of Dong Rulan's relationship with him, he's her younger brother. Don't flatter yourself. If the previous words from the king weren't enough, then this part was the final finishing blow. Stumbling backwards, Fu Baoyun crumbles to the ground. Brother is reusing the Dong house not because of me, but because of Dong Rulan. Which part of her is worthy of such honor? But brother, how can this be, how can that be? I know, you must have been seduced by that Dong Rulan too. A slut like her would only be good enough to seduce other men. Her voice borderline hysterical. Pa. Without indication, a lightning-fast figure of red was already standing before the abhorrent woman to send her flying out in that slap. Who are you to insult my aunt? Perhaps it's the murderous intent exuding out of Bai Yan's enchanting face, but not even this outrageous woman would dare look up at her attacker. Those lips tightly shut into a shivering mess due to the pain and humiliation. Miss Bai Yan, wiping the cold sweat off his forehead, Fu Tianqi king, forces an awkward smile to help the mood. I will definitely give you a proper answer for this incident, and those that harmed your phoenix and Lady Rulan is free to be disposed as you please. Until then, could you have your dragon retreat for now? There are a lot of people who are uninvolved in this event. Those eyes from the dragon was simply too bloodthirsty, as if the creature wanted to swallow him whole and then spit him back out just to be shred to pieces. Towards that plea, Bai Yan only cast the king a bone-chilling glare without bothering to say a single word. Then again, that stare was more than enough to state her answer. I'm only offering a suggestion. Miss Bai Yan, please do as you wish, please do as you wish. The king could barely keep his face up due to that oppressive aura. What a joke. Even if Bai Yan wasn't the mistress of the flower brothel, that dragon alone was enough to make this whole kingdom tremble. Not because of its mighty powers, nay, it's the demon beast sect behind it. Furthermore, Fu Tianqi also heard from his informants that not even the sect leader can tame this glass dragon. How can he not be afraid right now? Bro brother. Chapter 313, The Demon Beast Sect is here too. No matter how stupid Fu Baoyun was, not even she can shirk off the fact that her brother was afraid of Bai Yan. Shuddering in her voice, this woman is but a discarded daughter of the Bai house, why are you? Giving a heavy grunt, Fu Tianqi snorts at his sister, discarded daughter. That can only mean the Bai house is blind. Not only is Miss Bai Yan the owner of the flower brothel, but her son too is recognized by the demon beast sect. Without incident, it's certain that the boy will be the future lord of that power. Without incident, it's certain that the boy will be the future lord of that power. Pa. Already ashen in her face to begin with, Fu Baoyun could no longer hold back her horror. Spurting out a massive puff of blood from her mouth, she had devolved into madness and jealousy. I don't believe it. Even my children are not qualified to become the lords of the demon beast sect. How can a wild child of an unmarried woman be worthy? The lord of the demon beast sect must be blind. Even if they do fancy someone, then it should be my children, not that dirty woman's. An ignorant wench like that doesn't deserve such honor. Boom. Disappearing in a flash, Bai Yan's figure once again appears before the abhorrent woman to stomp a thrusting kick into her stomach. Just now, who did you call a wild child? Staring down at the blood-ridden woman below her, Bai Yan's pupil looked like it was brewing up a storm in how cold they were. Injured to the point where she hardly screamed anymore, Fu Baoyun didn't answer. She may be dumb and outrageous, but her life was definitely important to her that she wouldn't want to gamble away for some mouthing off. I've never deceived anyone about my son's origin and that he's my baby whom I carried for 10 months alone. Evoking a gorgeous smile, Bai Yan somehow had a different meaning in her words, unlike someone though. After getting pregnant, they instead looked for an alternative substitute to hide their shame. In that second, the abhorrent woman instantly changed. No longer arrogant and egotistic, there were horror and panic. How did she know that? Impossible, she must be deceiving me. Thinking up to here, Fu Baoyun finally shuts her dirty mouth, refusing to even look at the reddish figure. Nothing else to say. Bai Yan's quietly smickers a sneer. Weren't you yapping aloud just moments ago? Now that I'm giving you the chance, why aren't you speaking? You. Panicking in her eyes, Fu Baoyun attempts to cover her nervousness by putting up a strong front. Aren't you just flaunting the influence of the demon beast sect? You say your son will become the young lord of that power. I say they must be blind before that happens. This time Fu Baoyun was at least smart enough to remove the word wild child from her statements. Nevertheless, her smear only made that blood-trickling mouth more disturbing. Woo-woo. It was then a sudden commotion from the sky caught the attention of the people down below. The sound belonged to a dense group of birds currently flocking over from the distance, and due to how thick and massive this flock was, even the sun had become overshadowed by their mass. There are firebirds, eagles, golden vultures and all sorts of varieties. But more importantly, there was a human standing on each and every single flyer. Yes, humans. For the crowds of people looking up in awe at this scene, all they can do was drop their jaws in utter shock. Mother. Clapping onto his mother's hand, Bai Xiaocan stared innocently up at the reddish figure. It wasn't I who called these demon beasts here. Chapter 314, The Demon Beast Sect is here 3. Of course they weren't called by you my son, they have already been tamed by another. Despite her brows pricking up at the swarm in the sky, Bai Yan had no intentions of releasing her foot from Fu Baoyun's chest down below. Sister-in-law, puckering her lips, Xuanhuan demon princess suddenly chimes in, don't worry, even if the royal family of this kingdom gets involved, it won't save them from me. These demon beasts must be asking for death if they dare to make a move against us. Sister-in-law is their future queen, plus I'm the princess of the demon realm. Just as the demon girl was busy having her unimportant thoughts, one of the leading figures had already jumped down from above. This was a middle-aged man donning a robe of blue. Whether it be his facial features or aura, it's full of nobleness that left no delusions about his upright nature. You are, startled there by the newcomer, Fu Tianqi King, wrinkles his brow at the person. For some reason the king has an aching suspicion that he had seen this person before. It's too familiar. Boom. Before the person could think any further, an imposing aura suddenly explodes out from the back mountain, shocking the king in the process. Fu Tianqi may not have eyes behind his back, but there's only one person in the whole kingdom that has such aura living in the back of the palace grounds. Lord Fang, what are you doing here? The elder's former king tone was full of flattery that left no doubt he's in the lower position here. This elder that's known as the former king of the Qiqia kingdom had long noticed Bai Yan's intrusion, just that he believes his son Fu Tianqi would be able to handle this without his help. That's why he didn't show himself earlier. But now, Fang Yufeng was already here in person. If he, the former king and true ruler of the kingdom, doesn't come out to receive him, then it would be considered a form of disrespect. Lord Fang, white in his face, Fu Tianqi King was trembling all over. Father, he is the lord of the demon beast sect. The king's words were like a clap of thunder, shocking and blowing the crowd apart in astonishment. What sort of existence was the demon beast sect? One of the de facto leaders of the second-rate powers out there. Even if the four kingdoms joined hands to combat this force, it's still not enough to overcome this huge difference in power. Just as Fang Yufeng wanted to head over to greet the mother and son pair, this upright man was suddenly interrupted by a strange old man getting in front of him. Towards this obstacle, his brows inexplicably furrowed into a knot while his gaze turned cold. "Move aside." That voice had no emotions whatsoever, merely an order like someone commanding a servant. Towards that blatant disregard for his status, the former king could only stuff it in and do as told by stepping aside. He may be displeased by this, but he's no fool. He's in no position to make demands. Chen Qi, the former king hurries to ask his son, "Did you provoke the demon beast sect? Otherwise why would the lord of that power come in person?" Making a difficult gulp, Fu Tianqi never looked so horrible in all his life. "Father, do you know who is currently stomping on Bao Yun?" "Who?" "Bai Yan." Boom. The elder's head literally went white, unable to think for a good while there. Trembling hard, the former king cannot believe the enchanting figure over there was the mentioned girl. "Bai Yan. It is actually Bai Yan. She actually came to our kingdom and brought Fang Yufeng here too. It's over. This time it's all over for us." Ellipsis. "Bai Yan, if you got the nerve then release me. I will tell Lord Fang everything." Beaming with joy at the sight of the upright man, Fu Baoyun instantly regains her courage. "Did you prepare your will then?" Smickering a smirk, Bai Yan was very cold in her attitude. Chapter 315, The Demon Beast Sect is here. 4. "You are only afraid of me spilling the beans on your affairs, that's why you want to silence me before then. Let me tell you, it's useless. Lord Fang is already here in person. That means you are exposed." "Shut up, you idiot." Fu Tianqi King was so scared now that his heart had nearly stopped there for a second. If only he could, this man would have ran over there instead and slapped his sister to death just so she stopped talking. "Oh, how I regret it. Why didn't I just kill her earlier? Why won't you let me say it, brother? If all of you won't let me speak, then I will say it anyways." Carrying blood in her mouth, the abhorrent woman was full of viciousness as she turned towards the lord of the demon beast sect. "Lord Fang, I have something I must tell you. There is something you don't know yet." Halting in his steps at the claim, Fang Yufeng turns his head around in confusion, thus giving Fu Baoyun even more courage. "Before I say more, I want to ask one thing. Is this boy beside that woman your disciple?" Stunned for a second there, the upright man first turns to the mentioned pair with amazement in his eyes before turning back to answer, "No, he is." Ha ha ha. Getting the confirmation that she wanted, Fu Baoyun was full of madness in her voice. "Have you all heard that? I said it. There's no way such an ignorant child from such a dirty woman can possibly catch the fancy of the demon beast sect. There's no way he could become the young lord. That's right. Even if someone is to be the young lord, it should be my son. What's so good about this bastard child?" Sinking in his expression at being cut off, Fang Yufeng's voice was stone cold there. "Of course Sir Xiakan is not my disciple. I am not qualified to be his Shifu master. Don't kid around. If I was qualified to be the boy's Shifu, then it would have been I who tamed the glass dragon instead." Going stiff in her face, the abhorrent woman's jaw instantly dropped open. "What do you mean by that? He's not qualified to be a bastard child's Shifu. What does he mean by that?" No longer looking at the foolish person lying there on the floor, Fang Yufeng continues in his steps for Bai Yan's location. But unlike his previous arrogance and disregard for everyone else, that face was rather complacent and full of respect. "Miss Bai Yan, us in the demon beast sect is willing to submit to your son Sir Xiakan. Would you be willing to accept us? As the lord of a second-rate power, it's only to be expected that his eyes are sharper than the rest. He knows, in order to seal the deal here, he must get the woman's permission and not the child himself. Besides, if Bai Yan's son can cause the miracle from back then, it can only mean this woman herself was no ordinary person either." "What are you doing here?" Bai Yan asks, her brow wrinkling into a knot. Smiling at the question, Fang Yufeng was more than pleased to answer that question. The request should have been said back at the Lu Huo Kingdom, but before the elder of our sect could ask, Miss Bai Yan, you have already left. And as it so happens, our base of operation isn't very far from here, the Chi-Chia Kingdom. That's why I came in person after getting the message from the elder. Because of the special means used by the Demon Beast sect to transmit messages, it was far easier to come in person rather than wait for the first elder to fly over from the Lu Huo Kingdom. Seeing how quiet Bai Yan was, Fang Yufeng figured he was free to continue. Your ladyship, I know this may be prudent of me, but allow me to help. I know your aunt is currently being harmed by a certain princess of this kingdom, so let me have the honor of dealing with such a woman. Chapter 317. Please come see a good show too. I not only have a father, I also have many aunts and uncles, lady. An innocent smile becomes of that baby boy's face. On the contrary, it is your daughter and son who will soon become an orphan. Against that soft and tender voice, no one can possibly relate that remark to something so ruthless and cruel. You shut up. Fu Baoyun, abhorrent woman, attempts to scream aloud. Unfortunately for her, before that voice could finish crying out, another kick had already stomped down at her mouth to shut the woman up. I see you don't need to say your last will. In response to that dangerous smirk, Fu Baoyun finally knew how to be scared. Shivering there in extreme pain, she quickly turns to her own husband that was nearby. Going stiff in the body, Dong Ruo, keen cowardly man, subconsciously shifts his head away. However, that line of sight continues to discomfort him from the back regardless. Mother. Just then, a wailing voice could be heard coming from the front. Clenching his fist at the sound, Dong Ruo Keen knew exactly who the person was. It's his daughter rushing over to his wife's side. Mother. I will save you, I will not let you die. Getting up from the floor, Dong Yuzu, horrible daughter, roars out at Bai Yan and her son, you evil woman, let go of my mother. Boom. Before the hateful young lass could draw closer to her target, Xuanhuan had already taken the liberty to send the person flying out with a blow of her own. Lying there on the ground in utter pain, Dong Yuzu's horrible daughter very face becomes a twisted mess. Not for her pain though, it's her hatred and anger. Yuzu. Dong Ruo Kan's voice was a little shaky there. What are you doing here? He can ignore Fu Baoyun's fate, but Dong Yuzu was his own biological daughter. No matter how poorly raised she was, he still can't turn a blind eye in front of this situation. You useless thing, you are actually standing idle while mother is being beaten. Spewing fire in those eyes, Dong Yuzu was unrelenting in her insults. Rather than say it's a daughter speaking to a father, it's more like a victim facing their family's killer. There's so much hatred there. Yuzu, this matter is. In the end it's your mother who's in the wrong. Meek in his voice, the cowardly man tries to explain himself. Shut up. Dong Yuzu, horrible daughter, roars out in anger, who allowed you to call me by my name? A useless thing like you, why won't you go die instead? I don't have such a useless and cowardly father like you. A pang of sadness instantly appeared on the man's face. For all these years, the efforts and love I gave only gets me this. Mother. Grasping hard onto his mother's hand, Bai Xiaokan looks up in earnest before making his comment. Mother, I promise you I will properly discipline my younger sister in the future and not let her become like that person over there. Unable to hold back her laughter at that statement, Bai Yan giggles with delight. Okay my son, I believe in you. Then does that mean mother is promising to give me a little sister? Quote ellipsis quote. Did I agree? Raising her finger, Bai Yan curves it into a hook and knocks it down onto the brat's head. If you want a sister then you should be looking to your auntie. Why? Your auntie's daughter is also your cousin, no different from a sister. Tilting his head, Bai Xiaokan naively looks to the demon princess, his eyes gradually revealing a glimmer of light. Shivering there at the stair, Xuanhuan instinctively took a step back. She's ready to cry at this point. Sister-in-law, you can't cheat people like that. Chapter 318. Please come see a good show 3. And, putting on a difficult smile, Xuanhuan hurries to change the subject. We better deal with the matter here first. It's more important. Understanding that tone, Bai Yan slowly turns to face the Dong elders. She wants to get their opinion on this before she begins. So what plans do your family have? Or are you okay with me taking over? Shooting a disgusted look at the person lying there on the floor, old Madame Dong was the first to reply. There's no hesitation in her words. This woman harmed my daughter and caused us so much grievances all these years. I believe it's safe to assume I'm speaking for the rest of the Dong house that we have no objections to anything you have in mind. Dong Tianling, old Lord Dong, originally wanted to say something there towards his granddaughter, but against those resenting eyes, this old grandpa ended up stuffing it back down. What about you? Bai Yan shifts her gaze over to Dong Rokeen, cowardly man this time. She wants to know, what will her aunt's younger brother do even under these circumstances? Will he do the right thing or continue going down this wrong path? Going stiff in his face, the man himself didn't have the nerve to face his daughter, nor the woman asking him the question. He's too ashamed to face anyone right now. Looking at this scene, Dong Muzu's horrible daughter finally fell into a panic. Struggling to get up, she clings onto her father's leg without letting go. No, you can't ignore my mother. She pleads by gripping the cowardly man's sleeve. If you don't help, then me and mother will die before your very eyes. By then, my brother too will hate you for a lifetime. Going ashen at that threat, Muzu, you. Dong Ruokeen, are you still my father or what? My mother didn't do anything wrong at all. Dong Ruolan was originally a daughter of the Dong's family. Since my mother is the mistress of the family, it's only right that she's permitted to do as she wishes with that woman. If you don't help now, then I will die in front of you. Snatching a sword from one of the guards, Dong Muzu's horrible daughter immediately places the sharp weapon next to her neck in idle threat. And due to how much hatred was portrayed in those eyes, even that young feministic face had distorted to the point where it's scary. Annoyed by this, Bai Yan's pressure on her captive only got harder. As a result, Fu Baoyun's pain instantly increased to the level where froth started to gurgle out of those blood-ridden lips. Sister-in-law, this time Dong Ruokeen shouldn't be so foolish anymore, right? Dai Xuanhuan demon princess gives a heavy snort, annoyed by the show she's seeing. Auntie, Bai Xiaocan lightly blinks his big innocent eyes. There's a saying out there. One's bloodline cannot be ended. He may not care about that abhorrent woman anymore, but he cannot ignore his daughter. No father wouldn't love their own biological daughter, but that's under the premise it's his own blood. Sure enough, Dong Ruokan's resolute face started to sway. In front of that tear-swelling daughter of his, the cowardly man eventually crumbles and kneeled before his parents. Father, mother, my wife did do a lot of wrong, and she became overly pampered as a result of our goodwill and guilt. Even so, Baoyun is still my children's mother. For your grandchildren's sake, please spare her life this one time. He did not seek permission from Bai Yan. After all, to this man Bai Yan was but his sister's niece. So long as his parents say yes, then what else can a distant relative say? Miss Bai Yan, Fang Yufeng, sect leader, shakes his head before sighing. Do you need me to handle this for you? Raising a corner of her lips into a scheming smile, Bai Yan's expression was as cunning as a fox. Son, do you want to see a good show later? Her mind kept thinking back to the report brought up by the members of the flower brothel stationed here in the Chichia Kingdom. Is mother going to get payback for grand auntie? Chapter 319. Please come see a good show 4. Bai Xiaocan certainly knows what his mother's intent was, so he naturally didn't object to the idea. All of you people can just wait for the show, Bai Yan proclaims, ignoring whether or not those present were interested. The one to hurt her aunt Dong Ruolan the most wasn't Fu Baoyun, it's her younger brother whom she cared for since childhood. Therefore, it's not enough to simply make the person repent, she must him regret for the rest of his life. Miss Bai Yan, Dong Tianling became hesitant to face that reddish figure. He wanted to speak on his son's behalf, after all, he's a father too. Sadly, against that cold and indifferent face, no words could be said. He did promise at first that he wouldn't interfere. You want to plead for them. Bai Yan's expression just got colder. Have you forgotten the pain they inflicted on my aunt? If Xuanhuan girl cousin didn't call for me, do you think your daughter would have lived? From the surface, Dong Rulan's injury may seem superficial, but in actual fact, it can become fatal or life-changing if the treatment gets prolonged. Going stiff in the face over that questioning, Dong Tianling, Lord Dong, could only issue out a sigh. Forget it, just assume I never said a thing. At the end of the day, Dong Mulin, horrible son, and Dong Muzu, horrible daughter, not only looked down upon their own father, but the entire Dong house too. As a result, the affection towards this pair of siblings were very thin and light for this grandpa, hardly worthy to be called a close bond. Furthermore, he's already made his daughter suffer for so many years. How can he as a father continue on with this wrong path after learning the truth? He can't. Grandfather. Dong Muzu widened her eyes in disbelief. Biting those lips in a panic, she turns back to her own father. Grandfather loves you the most. If he still won't agree to help, then use your life to force him. Getting a slight shiver at the last part, Dong Rokin almost couldn't believe what he just heard from his own daughter. Facing the twisted face, daughter, do you know what you are saying? I don't care, it's more than worth it to use your lowly life to exchange for my mother's life. If he still won't agree, then you are to self-mutilate. I won't believe he won't intervene by then when your life's on the line. The girl's face was already a twisted mess to begin with, enough to frighten the youngest of children. Now, even the adults are having trouble matching that face with someone worthy to be called a human. It's utterly frightening in how crazed-ridden those eyes were. Closing his eyes at that sort of display by his own flesh and blood, Dong Ruoqin painfully turns back to his own parents. Father, mother, please forgive my unfilial behavior. The both of you can abandon your grandchildren for sister, therefore I too can abandon the Dong house for my children. His voice was shaking all over, as if every word had exhausted the life out of his body. Muzu is my own flesh and blood, my own daughter. No matter what wrong she's done, I can't just turn away without getting involved. Mother, father, if the both of you must punish my wife, then I too can only follow suit with my family and head to the afterlife together. You. Old Madame Dong was infuriated to the point where even her own fingers were shaking there. However, before the old grandma could utter another word, she had lost consciousness with her eyes rolled over. Knowing he's the source of this, Dong Ruoqin's head only got lower and lower. He didn't have the courage to go help support his mother there, nor did he have the courage to face the infuriated eyes of his own father. I will give you another chance. Are you sure you want to help Fu Baoyun and this thing you call your daughter? You won't regret it. Just as the cowardly man was about to cave under the pressuring gazes from all sides, this soft and mellowing voice suddenly chimed in and gave him light. I won't regret it. Biting his lips, Dong Roqin was surprisingly firm in his words. Towards the foolish man's answer, Bai Yan can no longer hold back her emotions. She literally broke out into a laughing fit. Not in mockery though, but in pain for her own aunt Dong Rulan. So it's like that, eh? Towards that unrestrained laughter, Dai Xuanhuan demon princess was literally gawking her eyes there, because this would be the first time where she herself was fascinated by the same sex. No wonder my big brother is so attached to sister-in-law, I almost lost it there too. Alright, remember the words you said today, issuing out a faint sigh. I hope when the time comes, you really won't regret it. Chapter 320, Is Brain Dead Hereditary? 1. Looking at that calm and indifferent face of the reddish figure, Dong Ruoqin suddenly fell into a panic. Would I regret it in the future? No. I will not. I'm doing this to save my daughter, therefore I will never regret it. Retracting her leg as the man wished, Bai Yan's voice was strangely soft and light there. Disappear from my line of sight within 3 seconds, otherwise all of you can forget about ever leaving again. Shivering all over at that threat, the cowardly man didn't delay and swiftly picked up his wife. Then in a dash of immense speed, he disappears like a gust of wind through the main exit way. As unwilling as this outcome was for Dong Muzu's horrible daughter, she can do nothing but shoot a glaring look at her foes before running off to tail her parents. Meanwhile in the background, Fang Yufeng, sect-led, was rather confused by this. Wrinkling his brow, he brings forth his question, "As far as I know, your ladyship is not a soft-hearted person. Why are you letting them go now? If I don't let her go, then how can the next part of the show take place?" Raising a smirk, Bai Yan slowly shifts her gaze over to the elders of the Dong house. "Go back and call my aunt and Sheroyan, boy cousin. I want to let him see a wonderful show in a bit." Regardless of how closely bonded Dong Ruo-Keen was to his daughter, she herself can never sympathize with such people, nor will she show pity in any way. Apparently still wanting to say something there, Dong Tianling, old lord, kept moving his mouth only to swallow it back down when a fierce glare shot his way from the very same girl. "All right, I will go inform my daughter and granddaughter." "Son, Shaoyun girl cousin, let us go back first." Taking her son's hand, Bai Yan was ready to depart for the outside only to be stopped by the upright man nearby. Forcing a timid smile, Fang Yufeng, sect leader, nervously asks, "Miss Bai Yan, the matter I mentioned before, could you put it into consideration? My son's matter will be decided by him. I usually don't interfere with his choices. If he agrees, then so be it." Halting in her footsteps, Bai Yan casually replies without hesitation. Full of hope in his eyes, Fang Yufeng swiftly turns to the boy in question. "Would Sir Xiaocan accept us?" This, blinking those big innocent eyes, by Zerichan turns out to be the unwilling factor here. "I have to think about it." Seeing there's still hope when the boy didn't explicitly refuse him, the upright man became relieved and quickly scurried up to their side to act as their escort and a competent bodyguard. Ellipsis. Back over at the Dong house, Fu Baoyun, abhorrent woman, was currently glaring fire at her own husband. "Dong Ruo-Keen, you useless thing, you actually watched me get beaten while standing there. What is the use of a piece of crap like you?" Going green in his face, the cowardly man actually talked back for once. "Fu Baoyun, I indulged you and tolerated you for all these years because I believed in your words, believed it was my fault that you've been humiliated. Now that I've learned the truth, do you expect me to continue like before? I am a princess, I am the princess of the Chi-Chia kingdom. Whether or not I am favored is of no concern, the fact that I married you still remains." In her fit of rage, the abhorrent woman snatches the teacup from the maid's tray and tossed it at her own husband's head. Despite the cup flying to his face, Dong Ruo-Keen didn't hide. He took it full on and had the steaming hot liquid splash all over his skin. As a result, not only did he get burned, the impact also caused his forehead to bleed. With a sneering voice, "What I owed you is repaid and more. Once your injuries are healed, we will divorce then." Divorce? Fu Baoyun couldn't believe her own ears there as her eyes widened in disbelief. Normally it's always her who's using the word divorce as a threat. Now the tables have turned against herself. Ignoring the deceitful woman behind his back, Dong Ruo-Keen went ahead to take his leave from the room, for he can no longer stand the person. "Dong Ruo-Keen, you won't have a good ending, you hear me? I curse your entire Dong house, I curse your entire line." Fu Baoyun was unrelenting and directly called out her curses, which instantly caused the departing man to furrow his brows in confusion. End of the chapter. Adorable treasured fox divine Dr. Mother Overturning the Heavens will be read in 10 chapters for every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday and Sunday. Please leave this sound novel and press subscribe, follow, and the bell so you don't miss any new clips as well. See you.